So starting do you want me to give you الأول your model answers and then we move further من هناك عشان ما نصلحهمش كلهم، ولا do you want me to correct them all ونقول حتى الحاجات اللي فيها مشاكل، أو نصلح الأول الغلطات وبعد كده نشوف الباقي؟ What do you think؟ صح، نصلح الأغلاط وبعد كده نشوف الباقي. أوكي، حلوة الفكرة دي. So give me 1 second I'll tell you بالظبط ال correct answer. Starting number 1, 1B, 2C, 3A, 4B, 5B, 6C, 7D, 8D, 9D, 10B, 11D, 12A, 13B, 14B, 15C, 16A, 17A, 18 and 19, we'll solve them with each other anyway. So 20B, and we'll stop there. كده عملنا من 1 ل 20. So what was the first mistake? أنا مالك, take your time. With question 8, good. $19. I'm sorry, 18? 16, okay. Okay. And Majd? 8, okay. Awesome. So in number 8, they're saying to determine if age and gender are related to pet ownership at his school, Mark selected a random sample of 50 males, 14 to 15 years old, students from their school, and a random sample of 60 female, 7 to 18 years old students from the school. For each student, he recorded the student's age, gender, and whether the student owned a pet. Which of the following provides the best explanation of why Mark cannot draw a valid conclusion from this study? So this is pure statistics, and in statistics there are a few things that you could be asked on غير المين والمود والمedian. You could be asked about the sample itself and so on. So what is أصلا قصة statistics? And I'm about to talk about something that's very abstract. Try to understand the samples. There's nothing here to explain. There's nothing to solve. Sorry. We're just going to discuss it. What does it mean and why and so on. Basically, فكرة statistics is that you can't really go and ask مثلا the entire population of a specific country about their preferred or their spending. You can't go and ask every single person in a whole country because there are millions. So instead, we ask samples of people. So out of a population, a big population, we take a sample. Usually, taking the way you pick that sample itself needs to follow specific restrictions. Any sample, whatever it is, it needs to be of good size. يعني إيه of good size؟ يعني you can't مثلا if you're trying to أو if you're talking about a population of 1000, you can't go and take a sample of five. Five people is not a good representative of a 1000 people. بس مثلا 100 or 50 would be okay. So the sample size is the amount or the number of people you take in the sample itself. دي أول حاجة مهمة to consider. Next thing is that the sample must be random sample. يعني it has to be not biased. يعني إيه not biased؟ يعني it doesn't really already prefer something over the other. So مثلا one of the questions مرة they asked about they wanted to ask people whether a specific يعني like a compound, they wanted to ask the people living in that compound whether to turn a space into a park for dogs or not. So they went and asked all the owners whether they would prefer to open this as a dog park or not. In this case, this sample is not valid. Why is it not valid? The sample is already biased. You went and asked only the people who own dogs. Then they'll definitely tell you to create a dog park. بس عشان تبقى not biased, عشان تبقى random sample, you should ask everyone, old or young, females and males, different locations, whether they have dogs or not, and so on. So these two things are very important to take care or to consider when you're taking a sample. طيب what happens after we take the sample? So far, does this make sense? ولا في questions? طيب, so what happens after taking the sample? Once we gather already the sample, we go and do some calculations. Sorry, we can do one of different things. ممكن نعمل experiment. يعني ايه experiment? An experiment is to try out something on people. So مثلا to give them a specific medicine and check what happens. In this case, this is called an experiment. But this is one thing to do. Another thing to do is to survey. Whenever you ask people questions and you gather the results, this is called a survey. Whenever you ask questions again and you gather results, our responses يعني, this is now called the survey. So usually this is what happens. And now we pick a sample, we ask them a few questions, we get back with the results that they've given us, and we then do some calculations to get to understand, are they doing well, are they doing bad, how many are there, مش عارف ايه, نعرف more information about the population. Now what happened in this question, yes, number 8, is that they said they wanted to check if the age and the gender are somehow related to ownership of a pet. يعني if there is a relation between your age and gender to the idea of you having a pet or not. So this guy went and asked a very weird sample of people. First of all, he went and asked males, 50 males, 50 بس, and their ages between 14 to 15. And then he went and asked 60 females with ages 17 to 18. This is not a random sample. A random sample should include males of different ages, should also include girls of different ages all together. ما ينفعش يبقوا طب يعني ليه ما سألش females مثلا who are 14 to 15 as well? We should have asked those. So that's one part. Another part is that the sample size may be small, but we don't know. حسب school was how many أصلا student generally. يعني school كلها, the population of the school is how many, and then this would then know whether 50 or 60 is a small sample size or a big sample size. So let's try and read the choices and we'll understand better. Is it that the sample sizes are too small? ولا the two samples are not of equal size? ولا Mark will be unable to tell whether the difference in pet ownership is related to age because the two age groups are too close in age? ولا Mark will be unable to tell whether a difference in pet ownership is related to gender because of the difference in age? Similarly, he'll be unable to tell whether a difference in pet ownership related to age. What did you guys select? Because I know every one of you, of course, thought of something different. So what did you guys think? Okay. So it's not that you didn't try to answer it, it's just you thought it's gonna take so much time for no reason, huh? Okay. And Sarah, what did you do? Same thing? Now the thing is, what you selected for C is correct, but at the same time, the problem is not just with the age groups, it's also with the difference related to the gender. So D is like C and added to it one more thing, which is true as well, because you're not just testing the gender, you're testing gender and age. فاهمة? So NTC is part right, but it's not the only right thing. Okay. I wanted to discuss, not this one. Probability, did you have any issues فيها? It's pretty easy, صح? It's not? Okay, that's awesome. Well, this one is basically arithmetic mean thing. This was a bit different, but I think you were able to figure it out by just reasoning, صح؟ تيجي شوية بالدماغ، يعني مش لازم تبقى قوي mathematical rules. Okay, geometry was good. Now 16. Which of the following is closest to the proportion of estimated daily usage of surface water that was fresh? So we go back to here. Apparently, this is a table that compares between the fresh water in the groundwater and the surface water and the saline water, and the saline groundwater and the surface water. The table shows the estimated مش عارف مين and so on. They say that New Jersey had an estimated population of 8,720,000. Which of the following is closest to the proportion of estimated daily usage of surface water that was fresh? So I need surface water بس تكون fresh. So في قد ايه من السيرفيس واتر؟ ادي السيرفيس واتر is right here. قد ايه منهم is fresh? This is the one for fresh. So we're talking about 1,340. This is the fresh. Out of how much? Out of the whole amount of surface water. يعني 1,340 plus the 5,460. They want to know the proportion of this to that. Does that make sense شوية? So are we good? Of course. So they said that they want to know the proportion. Proportion زي الريشيو كده شوية. The proportion of estimated daily usage of من ايه؟ من السيرفيس water that was fresh. عايز يعرف قد ايه من السيرفيس water كان fresh. قد ايه as a fraction, fraction of surface water اللي كان fresh. So I went back to the table and I checked how many من السيرفيس water كان fresh. لقيتهم 1,340. This is the fresh. المفروض over التوتال saline water surface water ولا ايه اللي موجوده اللي هم 1340 وال 5460 all together. This is the whole surface thing. Does that make sense? So you put this on a calculator it will get you the answer. I think it's about 20%. I think it's A, صح? Oh, perfect. Good. Yeah, I think so far things were easy. ما كانش في حاجة صعبة قوي، صح؟ طيب I'd like to start دلوقتي من أول word problem اللي في 22. So من 22 I'd like to go بعد كده and continue up until 27 لأ 28. Let's finish off until 31. Is that okay? So we'd like to start again من 22 to 31. ولا من 23 أنا قلت استنى let me check كده تاني. من 20 من 22 until 31. These are just 9 questions. Let's give them 10 minutes. Can we please move to the next link before we start this? ماشي يلا please. Perfect, you found it. يلا حبايبي. So to continue from there, 22 as we said, let's start right away. We said من 22 to 31, 10 minutes starting now. So starting with 22, it says in economics, Ocon's مش عارف مين law states that the percentage change in the unemployment rate from one quarter to the next is related to the quarterly percentage change in the gross domestic product اللي هو GDP, which is G, as defined by this equation. The most important thing in any word problem إن احنا نعرف كل letter معناه إيه. وهو قال they explained what every letter represents and they said that this R basically represents the percentage change in unemployment rate, while this symbol اللي هي the change in G represents the percentage change بس in the gross domestic product. Then this is the equation. So they said, what does that mean? Does it mean that the quarterly percentage change in the GDP for every 1% change in the unemployment rate? ولا the quarterly percentage change in the GDP to maintain the same unemployment rate? ولا the percentage change in the unemployment rate if the change in the GDP is 0%? ولا the percentage change in the unemployment rate for every 1% change in the GDP? So this is عامة stupid thing شوية معلش. This refers شوية to the idea of linear equations. Do you remember when we said this is a linear equation, y equals mx plus b? And any equation in the world that has two different letters and both to the power of 1 would be considered a linear equation. So in that case, the letter, this m, the number multiplied by the letter, that would be considered the slope, and this one would be considered the y-intercept. And we also said that the slope has different keywords. One of them was that it is the rate of change. So why is that important? Because whenever we needed to calculate the slope, we do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which we said it's the same as the change in y over the change in x, which then means إنه if the slope, for example, is 2 over 3, it means for every 3 increase on x, there is a 2 increase on y. And if the slope is, let's say, negative 1 over 4, then every 4 increase on x has 1 decrease on y. So because they're mainly trying to compare the changes in both, whether it is the GDP or the unemployment rate, I'm trying to check the slope. And this seems to be like a linear equation فعلا. But instead of it being written as y equals mx plus b, it's written as y equals b plus mx. Because this is the variable هنا, r. Which this بالنسبة لي means what? It means that this number here is the slope. The negative 1.82 is the slope. If this is the slope, then again, the change in y, which is here called g, over the change in x, which is here called r, is equals to negative 1.827. Does that make sense so far ولا لا? Are we sure? Are we sure we're good? طيب ماشي. أنا معلش عشان ما سمعتهاش والله sorry. They're saying from one quarter to the next is related to the quarterly مش عارف ايه percentage كذا. So this is the equation. Does this mean that the quarterly percentage change in the GDP for every 1% change in the unemployment rate? Is this the case? Is it a 1% change between this to that؟ يعني كل ما again احنا فاهمين ان فوق هو ال change in G يعني ال change in GDP واللي تحت هو ال change in rate. I can rewrite ال negative 1.827 دي ان انا اخليها over 1 واقول ان كل increase في الريت بيقل قصاده there's a decrease in the GDP of 1.827. Does this make sense? So which of those seems to be now, once we understand this, seems to be a better, makes better sense شوية. The first one actually makes sense ليه؟ بيقول لي إن ال GDP it changes, ال GDP changes عامة for every 1% only in the unemployment rate, which is exactly what we just described here. لأن ال 1 دي بتاعت ال employment rate والنيجاتيف 1.8 دي بتاعت ال GDP. So apparently ال quarterly percentage بتاعت ال GDP بتتشينج فعلا بس for every 1% بس من ال unemployment rate. لأن ال unemployment rate ب 1 تحت. انما تحت بيقول لي it stays the same. No, it doesn't stay the same. There is a difference between them. بيقول لي فوق بعد كده في C the percentage change if the change in GDP is 0%. يعني لو الجي اتغير 0 ال unemployment change. This doesn't make sense. A percentage change in unemployment rate for every 1% in the GDP يعني هو معتبر ان ال 1 دي بتاعت الجي والنيجاتيف 1.827 دي بتاعت الار وده مش صح. Does that make sense شوية؟ طيب I hope so. Moving on to 23 is actually much easier. 23 لازم أنا آخد بالي منها أو آخد بالي من كام حاجة فيها. أول حاجة once you look at the choices هنلاقي في الchoices إن في حاجات منهم عبارة عن letters أو polynomial عادي وفي الآخر في fraction. This is a very similar look للأنسرز بتاعة long division أو بتاعة division عامة. So we need to discuss long division. We need to discuss the remainder theorem. هعملهم على another example وبعدين نرجع للexample ده. Imagine if I have x to the power of 2 plus 5x plus 6 وأنا عايز أعملها divided by x plus 1. We can do حاجة اسمها long division, which we put this symbol here of the long division, where the numerator always gets to be inside, while the denominator is always outside. We follow three main steps, which are division, multiplication, and then subtraction. When we divide, we only divide the first term by the first term. And we put the answer up here. So x squared divided by x will give me x. This is the first step, اللي هي division. Next step is the multiplication. When we multiply, we take this and we multiply it by everything outside, and we write the answers over here. So x times x is x power 2, and x times 1 is positive x. Third, I'll go for the subtraction. وفي السبtraction I put brackets and a minus sign and a line. X power 2 minus x power 2 will cross each other. 5 minus 1 will give me 4x. And I'll drop this 6 next to it. And I'll repeat all over again. Only first term by first term division تاني, which will give me here positive 4. Then I know that the next step must be multiplication. So 4 times this and 4 times that, and I'll put the answers here, which will get me 4x plus 4. Finally, I'll go for the subtraction, so brackets, negative line, 4x minus 4x will cross each other, and 6 minus 4 is 2. Because there are no more x's, I know that this is over, and the number that's put here, this is called the remainder. Why are we saying all of this? Because the final answer of this division is written as this part اللي فوق اللي هو x plus 4 plus the remainder, which is 2, over the divisor, which is x plus 1. The number or the thing that I divided with here is called the divisor. So the final answer must have the remainder up here over the divisor down there. So whenever, if I see choices and there seems to be something over x, this seems to be, or this seems to mean that this is the remainder and this is the remainder. So that's what gives me the hint that they actually have divided these two things with each other. So I'll start to think, oh, this means, and then I have to go and do the long division thing, which means I'll put the x power 2 minus 2 inside, and I'll put the symbol and the x minus 2 out here, and then I'll divide this by that, which will give me x, multiply, which will give me x power 2 minus 2x, and then the minus sign, and a line. X power 2 minus x power 2 will be removed. Now here's the trick. I cannot subtract the negative 2 with the negative 2x because they're different terms. They're not like terms. But I can actually put them next to each other. يعني I'll say it's negative 2 minus negative 2x, يعني negative 2 plus 2x. So it's as if it's 2x plus 2. Does this make sense? Sarah, would you like me to repeat this? Type. So what happened in the previous question, when we subtracted the 5x اللي هنا with this x, they had the same variable, so I was able to subtract them. But now when I'm doing it here, this is 2 without an x, and this one is with an x, so I can't subtract them. So what do? We just write them next to each other. So the negative 2 will be written عادي, negative 2, but then this is not negative 2x, it's negative 2x, which makes it positive 2x. Does this make sense? And now I'll divide again this first term by this one, which will give me positive 2, and I'll multiply, which will give me 2x minus 4, and then I'll do the subtraction. This will remove this, and negative 2 plus 4 will give me positive 2. So I know that this is the remainder, and I know that the answer should be written as x plus 2 plus the remainder, which is 2, over the divisor, which is this x minus 2. So it's definitely C as the correct answer. There's one more thing to highlight for the question. إنه كده كده we said that the remainder must be written over the divisor. While here the x power 2 minus 2 is not the divisor. So therefore this is not the remainder أصلا. So من الأول I know إن this cannot be one of the correct answers لأن the answer must be over the divisor, not the one that I divided with. Sorry, not the dividend اللي هو the big one. It's actually over the divisor اللي أنا عملت بيه division. طيب, one final last thing about this. There is a way to get to the remainder على طول. So instead of getting the whole steps of the whole answer of the division, I can get the remainder بس. So I'll try that here on this question that we divided with في الأول خالص. We had here x squared plus 5x plus 6, and it was divided by x plus 1. So in order to find only the remainder, if I needed to find the remainder only, I'll just take the divisor اللي هو ال x plus 1 اللي تحت, and I'll make it equals to 0. I'll then move x, I'll solve for x, so I'll get x equals to -1. Take this x and substitute it into the numerator instead of this and this. So put -1 power 2 plus 5 and then times -1 plus 6. Put this on a calculator and it would get you the answer as 2. So the 2 here is the remainder. So I can get to find the remainder على طول by using حاجة اسمها remainder theorem. Remainder theorem this says that you can take the divisor, make it equals to 0, substitute, get the remainder. Does this make sense ولا لا? So going back to this question, how could we could have used this here? We can say إنه I'll take the divisor اللي هو x minus 2, make it equals to 0, which will give me x equals 2. Substitute this 2 into this equation, so put 2 power 2 minus 2, which will give me 2. So I know that the remainder right away is 2. So I know that it can't be A because A doesn't have a remainder, and it can't be B because it doesn't have a remainder, and it can't be D because this is not the remainder. So it's definitely C, just by using the remainder instead of doing the whole division thing. Does this make sense? So we've skipped all of those steps, we can go with the remainder على طول وخلاص. And that's a very important thing لأنه بصراحة بتيجي كتير في الامتحان. Especially كمان if, for example, there's a question that has different remainders في الchoices. يعني مثلا remainder مكتوب في الchoice هنا -3 over x minus 2 وهنا 4 over x minus 2. So I can tell right away that this is خلاص the correct remainder من الأول. خلاص done for one step substitution وخلاص. Anyway, sorry كده خلاص إن أنا لغيت كتير في الموضوع, بس I just wanted to make sure this is okay because again it's repeated كتير. طيب, let's go for this one. It says that the formula above relates centripetal. This is a word that I've never seen before. Centripetal, I think so. Centripetal. Anyway, centripetal force in newtons acting on an object traveling in circular path to the object's mass, its velocity v and the radius r. Blah, blah, blah. Right away, this seems to be very complicated because of the words they use, and they intentionally use words and things that seems to be hard. So we'd like to simplify things in our mind, ازاي? By just knowing, as I said earlier, any word problem فيها math expression كده, we need to know what every letter means. اسمه ايه, بيعمل ايه. So for example, we know that the F represents force, as we just said. So all of this, we just need to look for the letters. F, force. Acting on an object, blah, 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 mass m. So I know that the m is mass. V, velocity, okay? R, radius. These are the things that matter in all of this. That the R is considered now the radius, I know that. The V is the velocity, and the M is the mass, and this is basically the force. That's what we need out of this whole thing. Going for 24, على طول, if the velocity of the object is doubled. So let me take this equation and write it here. F equals mv power 2 over r. They say here the velocity, which is the v, is doubled. doubled يعني multiplied by 2. So the V will become 2V. That's what it means to be doubled. Which of the following شفتوا following اللي مكتوبة دي which of the following equations expresses the new centripetal force of the object in terms of the original centripetal force F? This برضو is an important question. So what I'm going to do is try and apply anything I know. So what I know, I didn't understand anything, but the only thing I understood is this, is that velocity is doubled means V became 2V. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply that. I'll remove the V and put the 2V and check what will come out. So M, and then open a bracket, and I'll put the 2V, close the bracket, and the power of 2, leave it as it is, all to the power, all divided by R. Remember that I have to put the power of 2 over the 2 and the V, not just the V. لأنه I removed the V and I put a bracket whenever I substitute something, and I put inside the bracket the 2V. The power of 2 is over both of them. So this will now give me something new. It will give me the new F, I'll call it F dash, as 2 power 2, which is 4. It will become 4 M V power 2 over R. When you check back, so and that's it, you can stop here. There's nothing you can do more than that. So you try and get back and read the question. They're trying to check the difference between N and the F thing. What's that? I mean, what does that mean? برضو, the new N is the new centripetal force. So instead of F dash, they actually used N. So I'll put here N instead of the F dash. And then they'd like to know N equals what F, how many F. If you check carefully, you can tell even by looking at it. If this is F, which is mv power 2, and again here there's mv power 2, the only difference is that there's an extra 4. So it's as if N is equals to 4 multiplied by F, because this yellow part is F. So A would be the correct answer. Does this make sense? Okay, so I just explained it in a way as if we don't understand anything and there's nothing that makes sense to me at the moment. We're just trying out things and we're checking what could come out, which is the method I prefer the most, فعلا, and you should go for it, because we're not expecting to know every single rule in the world and to remember every single idea in the world. And this is not what we're expecting, but we expect to be able to think through and try through any question without giving up quickly, يعني, on it. Going on to 25. Of the following equations, which is not equivalent to the formula of the centripetal force? So which is not equivalent to the formula? The formula was that F equals to mv squared over R. When you look at the first one, it became Fr equals mv squared. That makes sense because if I needed to move the R to the other side, it would go by multiplication and it would become exactly like that. So this one is not the answer because they're looking for one that's not true. When you look at B, it says V squared over F equals M over R. What does that برضو mean? It means as if they moved this V to the other side with the F. So it's supposed to go as F over V squared equals M over R. But that's not what's written here. Here it's written as V squared فوق و F تحت. So definitely B is the correct answer. Does this make sense? D or D? So C, okay. So see what happened is this. What happened is that suddenly there's an extra M, صح? So I'll do that to the one that I have. This is supposed to be the original one, and I'll add M زي ما هو عمل. هو added M فين؟ هو أو بلاش. I'll look at it with a different method. Move the R, because the R here is next to the F, so I'll move the R to the other side. I'll put it here, FR equals MV squared. And then if I need to move M to the other side, it would be FR over M equals V squared. Why is this, did this one become suddenly M to the power of 2 and this one on the other side became برضه divided by M? Why? Because if you do that, if you decided to add m on both sides, هنا وهنا, this would become fr over m squared over v squared over m. And it would still be true, because if you divide both sides by the same thing, or if you multiply both sides by the same thing, it's still the same value at the end. فاهمة? Are you sure يا سارة? No, not so much, صح؟ سارة؟ طب مش عارف, يمكن I can't hear you out. If you feel يا حبيبتي you're not so good at it, let me يعني tell me I'll repeat it, okay? Perfect. 26, it says in 2015, XYZ Railroad made a plan to reduce the number of railroad cars in service by 12 cars per year for each of the next 15 years. 12 per year for 15 years. And they said that they're going to reduce. So which of the following types of expressions could be used to model the number of cars XYZ has in service n years after 2015, where n is an integer from 1 to 15. So we need something to represent the number of cars available in this railroad after a specific number of years, whatever the number of years is. So mainly لو I'm deducting يعني minus 12 every year, it's supposed to be written as negative 12 multiplied by the number of years, which are n, because they said n years. And then I should start from something. I should start from a specific amount. So I should have some sort of an initial value, A, for example, something that represents the start. When you look at the choices, you can tell in A and B seems to be يعني ممكن يكونوا صح, while C and D are not. Why? Because whenever you put the variable in the power, it means you should be increasing or decreasing by the same percentage, مش by the same number. يعني you should be multiplying by the same amount or dividing by the same amount. But if you're subtracting or adding the same amount, this is not exponential. This is linear. يعني المفروض تكون شبه A أو B. C is wrong and D is wrong from the very beginning. طيب, is it A positive and B negative, or A negative and B positive? We know for a fact that because it's reducing, then the B, اللي هو the number multiplied by the N, is supposed to be negative. It's like the slope. So then I know that this means A must be the correct answer. Sorry, أنا آسف, مش A. Oh, yes, A is supposed to be the correct answer while B is incorrect. Are we good? 27. A piece of jewelry is initially valued at 100. Every month, the value of the piece of jewelry increases by 1%. This is an increase by 1%. That's definitely exponential. And we know that the exponential should follow this form right here. And we said that this form means that the A is supposed to be the initial value, the amount that you started with, while B is the rate, which could be either growth or decay. If it's increasing, it's 1 plus the percentage over 100. If it's decreasing, it's 1 minus the percentage over 100. The X always represents time, which in this case is supposed to be in years. So because they said that they initially started with $100, I should start instead of the A 100. And because they said this piece of jewelry increases by 1%, then it's a growth. So it's 1 plus 1 over 100, all to the power of X, اللي هم number of years. But when you check, when you read carefully the question, it says the end of T months. So it means that the time here will be put in months. I need to change from months. No. خلاص. So this will be T. خلاص. Now when you look at the choices, 1 over 100 will give you 0.01. So it's 1 plus 0.01 to the power of t, which then means that B must be the correct answer. Make sense? ليه على فكرة ليه أنا I realized this in the middle of the question. But the reason why it's not it's okay here to leave t as it is without dividing or doing anything, because already they said that it increases by 1% of its value the previous month. So apparently this 1% already بتحصل every month, so the power will be months as well. If the percentage was every year, the power will be years. If the percentage was every day, the power will have to be days, and so on. 28 is a very important question because it's just it explains why do we use graphs in real life and so on. And they're saying basically this clock, it's not dock, it's a clock shown above, has a diameter of 14 inches. Its minute hand has a length of 6. So this has a length of 6, while it is placed on a wall so that the center of the clock is at 66 inches above the ground. This center is above the ground with 66 inches. This entire distance from the center to the ground is 66 inches. Other than that, which of the following graphs could represent the distance from the tip of the arrow, to the minute hand to the ground with respect to the time from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. So I'm basically looking من 10 من الساعة 10 and at the time 10 the minute hand clock is supposed to be exactly at 12. And from 10 to 11 it means that it will go around one complete cycle. So as the hand or the hand clock is moving around, the height of this arrow, the end of this arrow, the height to the ground is changing. So when this arrow goes over here now, the height from here to the ground will be shorter, and then it goes there, the height will be even shorter, and then it goes here and the height will go to the shortest, and then when it goes back here to this side, this height is the same as this original, our previous height that we passed by. And then when it goes back here, it goes again to the same height that it originally reached on the other side. So this seems to me that it means that the height will be going up to a specific height and it will reach its peak, which is this point here, and then will go down to a specific height and that would be the lowest. And it will keep going up to the height, to the highest, and then back to the lowest, and so on. So when you look at the graphs, it has to be some sort of a wave. It doesn't go back to down and then suddenly go back up. It's a wave kind of thing. It starts at the height of 72 because the ground or the center was at 66. It went up 6 inches and it would go down 6 inches as well until it reaches only the 60, and it will keep moving around between the 72 and the 60, and that's it. Does that make sense? Perfect. 29. Larry plans to make at least 10 pounds of a snack mix that will consist of almonds and dried fruit. So there are almonds and there are dried fruits, at least 10 pounds of both. So I'll write here on the side at least 10 of both, which means that the A plus the F needs to be more than or equals to 10, at least 10, so bigger than or equal. Just by knowing this fact, I can exclude right away option A and option D, and I'm left with B or C. Now let's read the rest of the question. They say, if he wants the snack mix to be at least 60% almond, if he needs the snack mix to be at least 60% almonds by weight, which of the following مش عارف مين. So I need the snack to be 60% by weight. يعني how can I put this? A plus F. لا A اللي هي the snack mix to be at least لا A plus F اللي هي السناك ميكس على بعضه should be at least it should be bigger than or equals to at least 60%. لا غلط. The the almonds sorry almonds الالمنز اللي هم الايه الالمنز هم اللي المفروض يكونوا at least 60% from the mix, so the almonds need to be more than or equals to 0.6 of the whole mix, which is A plus F. Does this make sense ولا مش قوي؟ Are we sure? طيب, so if that's the case, I'll have to distribute this and it will get me A bigger than or equals to 0.6A plus 0.6F, and then put this one to the other side, and I'll have here بالminus, so it goes as 0.4A bigger than or equals to 0.6F, and then move the 0.4 to the other side, and you'll have A bigger than or equals to 0.4 divided by, sorry, 0.6 divided by 0.4, which is 1.5. 0.6F divided by 0.4, which will get me A bigger than or equals 1.5, and then F. So this is the other inequality, which means that C must be the correct answer, B is incorrect. وكده كده برضو by looking at it from, or if you created this inequality من الأول صح, you know for a fact in this is wrong. It can't be, it doesn't make sense ان تبقى بس 0.6 من F. Does this make sense شوية? Okay. Moving to number 30, the speed of light in vacuum is 3 times 10 to the power of 8 meters per second. Given that 1 kilometer is equals to an approximately 0.62 miles, which of the following is closest to the speed of light in a vacuum in miles per hour? First of all, you're given this, and that's meters per second. So it means it's 3 times 10 to the power of 8. And I'll put here meters. And on the other hand, I'll put another rate that says seconds. This is done in 1 second. Whenever I'm given a rate, I write it in this form. They then said that the 1 kilometer, which is another rate, kilometers, the 1 kilometers is equivalent to, in miles, 0.62. So they need me to find in miles per hour, the speed, but in miles per hour. So I'll need, first of all, to change this from meters to miles. Because it's in meters, I'll first need to change it to kilometers. How do I change from meters to kilometers? By dividing by how much? لا, meters بس to kilometers. This is in meters when I'm trying to change to kilometers. Dividing by 1,000. So we divide by 1,000. If you divide by 1,000, this 1,000 has 3 zeros. Those 3 zeros will remove out of the 8 another 3. So that would get me 3 times 10 to the power of 5. This could be done under the kilometers now because that's in kilometers. And I can change this now to find it in miles by cross multiplying. So I'll do 3 times 10 to the power of 5, which is 300,000, times 0.62 divided by 1. On a calculator, 300 times 0.62, that's 186, so it's 186,000. So the 186,000 is in how much? It's in second, in 1 second. In 186,000 is done in 1 seconds. And that's in kilometers to seconds. But they don't want it to be in in miles, sorry, not kilometers. That's now in miles. But they don't want it to be miles per second. They want it to be miles per hour. So if the 1 second, I'll multiply by how much? Changing from seconds to minutes الأول by 60. From seconds to minutes, I'll multiply by 60. And then I'll multiply by another 60 to change to hours, which is 3,600 or 3,600. Yeah. So if you now multiply 186,000 by 3600, كده كده it will get me 6 something, يعني 6. لا, it's not exactly the same, but yeah. Closest would be this because it came out as 6696. So the 9 would make this to be 7. So that's 6.7 times 10 to the power of 8. Does this make sense? This is one of the hard ones, by the way. 31 is stupidly easy بقى مرة واحدة because it's the beginning of the grid in. They're saying how many feet from the base of the building is the bottom of the ladder. يعني they need to know this distance right here. That's a Pythagoras theorem. We'll do the hypotenuse power 2 minus the other side to the power of 2. And all of this is under the root. And it should get me the answer right away. I think it's 16, صح? I'm not sure, no. It's 3, 4, 5. That's the 4. 4 times 6, 3 times 6. No, 18, sorry. Are we good? I think this was good. I know there are harder questions now, so that's pretty nice. We discussed really, really nice ideas and so on. So that was a good practice.